right, welcome everyone. Chris Petri here. Thanks again for coming by. We're just starting out this video. We want to kind of put on the video here our finished painting. So you're kind of going to see how we developed this whole entire composition, starting out first with a really nice light pencil sketch, and then I'm going to actually have measurements around this painting, so you'll have a guide as to where to get your measurements to get your building size exactly the same as this. And then after that, we'll go in and do a darker pencil line over the top so it's really clear to see in the video. And then from that point on, we're just going to do some beautiful washes. We're doing the alla prima method here. So basically the alla prima method is we're starting out with the darks first. So we're going in and doing the dark arcades with the arch and the balcony with the dark shadowing inside the balcony areas and inside this window opening here into the arcade behind. And then once we do that, then we start doing our lighter washes. We do some of the middle tonal value washes, which is the purple and orange and brown shadow mixes underneath the roof overhangs. We put on some orange paint on the umbrellas and the clay tile roofs, and then you can just see that at that point we're really home free. We'll go in and we'll do the figures. We leave this on the video, the tutorial, at all times, so you'll always have this to reference. The photograph here we have from the internet, so we have an internet photograph we're using for reference. We changed it around a little bit to make it a little bit more user-friendly to get this painting done. And you'll see we did the shadows under the tables and the figures, and we did some really fun figure work here. So you're going to have a great time just practicing all kinds of fun techniques and methods in this painting. And, you know, we're having fun with it. You're not really going for a perfect painting. You're just working with the medium, working with watercolor, pencil drawing. It's an extreme beginner's video, of course. So you're not trying to get a perfect painting. You're just trying to get in there. We're just trying to get in there and do the basics of fundamentals of watercolor and work on them and get the feel for them, because it does take a lot of time before you start to really develop your technique and your methods of how you're going to paint your paintings. So it's just all about practicing over and over and over again, getting in and doing these type of paintings. And you know, if it turns out great, awesome, you know, save it, put it in a frame. If it turns out lousy, no problem. You might want to do another one or two of them, or just practice small sections of it too. You can always section off and make just one little small part of this painting if you want, and you can always do that. You could take a small section of this painting and just do one small section like this, and then paint this in here and do something like this. So you can always reduce the size of what you're doing and make it a little more simple, so you don't have to paint this. You could just kind of do this section here, maybe a little bit of the roof up here, one umbrella and three figures, or you can come over here and just do an archway with one seated figure and a chair. So always remember, you have options with watercolor and working with compositions like this. You know, you have options. You can, you know, do things differently, approach it differently. You know, I found I had a lot of good success when I first started with watercolors, doing smaller sections of other paintings I was looking at. So I was going through all kinds of art books and following other artists, professional artists, and then I was looking at their books and the paintings in their books, and then I would just section off a small area and say, I'm just going to practice this one spot. And then I might do like 2 or 3 figures and an umbrella, and then good, I have it. I kind of get that part accomplished. Then maybe another time I do this one figure over here, another time, and then by the time I've done 3 or 4 of those, then I can put this whole thing together, and it's a lot easier because I practice smaller sections first, and then I can do the whole thing because I've kind of already drilled down on all of the parts of the whole that you might want to do. So these are just ideas I have that I try to relay to you. I'm glad you're here and painting along with me. Let's get started, and we'll have a fun time, okay? All right, we'll be back in just a second. All right, we just saw the finished painting, everyone. Thanks again for coming by. We're going to just kind of discuss a few things before we start. I just want to mention my paper. My paper is Fabriano Studio Watercolor. Comes in 11 by 14 pad, 50 sheets. real simple. I just, you open up your pad of paper and then you just tear off a sheet and put it down and put some tape on it, tape it down to your working surface, and you're ready to go. So again, I do say, well, this is an extreme, and if this is your first time here, welcome. This is an extreme beginners video tutorial on my channel. And when I'm doing extreme beginners series, basically I'm just trying to kind of focus in on some of the more simple parts of watercolor when you're first starting out. So when you're first starting out in watercolor, you're not going to want to go out and spend thousands of dollars on equipment and brushes and all kinds of fancy gear. You might not like watercolor. You might wind up working with pastels or oil painting or sculpture, something else. You might decide you want to do something different. But if you're going to maybe paint in watercolor for a couple years, maybe you're going to hold off on spending a lot of, you're not going to probably want to spend a lot of money on expensive, brushes and palettes and paints and things like that. So I start off with the simple items here, tools for your watercolor painting. So I have, this is a Prang Oval 16 semi-transparent, semi-moist watercolors. Basically real simple. You just take a spritzer bottle, any kind of water. You can even just splash some water on these. You spritz some water on these paints, and within 5 minutes, you're ready to paint. Even within a minute or two, you can actually start painting. They're perfect for a beginner watercolor artist. You don't have to really worry about it. When you're done, you just close up your paint set and put it to the side. And then when you're ready to go again and paint the next week or maybe in a few days or whatever it is, or whenever you have time, you just open up your palette, spritz it with some water, and you're ready to go and paint. So when you start getting into the fancier paints and tube paints and things like that, it takes a little more time and care to kind of keep up on all of that. So this is kind of a perfect solution for people that are just starting in watercolor, where you can just have wonderful, beautiful colors here. You can paint, create gorgeous paintings in watercolor, and you don't have to spend a lot of money. And, you get started and then you see how it goes. And if you really are interested in pursuing watercolor to the next level, well then, yeah, you go out and you spend some more money and get some fancier brushes and things. So that's the paper I use. This is the palette we use. Many of you know this is the palette we use when we're doing extreme beginners videos. And then the brushes are real simple. You get this brush with your Prang set, your Oval 16 Prang set. So you have that. Great round brush, pointy, fine details, perfect. Then also too, I suggest you can pick up online for very inexpensive, maybe $8 or $10. You can get these Princeton Art and Brush Company brushes. They're watercolor brushes, they're synthetic brushes, and they come in like a 5 or 6 pack. So these are 2 of the brushes. They also have 2 round brushes like this in the 6 pack. So you get 6 brushes for like $10. It's a great deal. These handle beautifully. Synthetic brushes are perfect for the beginner watercolor artist as well. They don't hold as much water, so you'll have less problem with water flooding onto your paper and in your palette if you're using synthetic brushes. So that's our brushes we're going to use. I use many different types of water containers, but you can use a heavy weighted bottom glass. So, one of those glasses that has the really thick, heavy bottoms, you set that on the table, it won't tip over, and you can use that as a water container if you want. Or you can use, the plastic ones they have. Holbein makes these. So you can do the Holbein collapsible water containers. They're plastic, they're really light, and you can just use these 2 as well. Or you can get creative and figure out something else you might want to use. But that's pretty much the water containers. What else do we have? Tissues, paper towels. Paper towels I cut them in small pieces so I don't waste my paper towels. I cut them in small sections like this. And this would be to clean off the palette. Once we're mixing up in our palette and you mix up a bunch of muddy looking colors, you need to clean up the palette. You wipe all your palette down and you start making fresh colors again. You can also use this to check off water off your brush, and I always mention that. Always have either a sponge or a paper towel or some tissue and have it right next to you. Hold on to it maybe, or you have a sponge next to your water container, and whenever you rinse off your brush, so let's say you rinse off your brush here in your water container like this, Once you're done rinsing your brush, tap it off a little bit on your sponge all the time as you're painting, so this way you don't get floods of water in your palette and things like that. You'll find that these couple tips here I share in the beginning of my video, it's going to go a long way for you. And so that's about it, really. I think everything else is pretty much self-explanatory as we go. And again, we did see the finished painting in the beginning, so we're going to do a beautiful cafe scene, bright sunny day, simple two-dimensional type composition. I also have my phone. I'm going to use this. This is the reference photograph I'm going to use to create this painting, so I'll set this right up over here. And this is actually another thing I always mention if you're starting out in watercolor, especially extreme beginners, but even you old pros out there that are sneaking in here in the extreme beginners videos, you're gonna really appreciate this. These mats are fantastic. You take these, and maybe you have different sizes. You have maybe 3-4 different sizes. This way, when you're painting and you're creating a painting, if you trace with a pencil, if you trace lightly with a pencil on the inside of this, then you know you have to at least paint up to those pencil lines. So this way, when you lift this mat off and you create your painting, you're going to paint at least to that light pencil line or beyond it a little bit. So this way, when you go to put your mat on your painting and get ready to frame it, especially if it comes out good, put it in a frame, hang it up, give it to a friend, bring it into work, hang it on the wall, do whatever you know, have fun with your watercolors, share them with people, have fun, give them as gifts, put them up on your wall in your house if you like them and you think you want to decorate your house a little bit with some fun looking paintings, you do that. But the main thing is, at least when you paint to a certain specific size like these, whether you're painting a medium size, a small composition like this, so you can use one of these, do a small composition or small painting. You can medium size, larger size, and of course there's even larger than this. You can use much larger watercolor paintings if you want. But for what we're doing, when you're an extreme beginner, you're going to kind of stick to the smaller sizes. This would be about the largest you're going to paint, an 11 by 14 size. That's about what you're going to be working with, or a little bit smaller. That's a little easier, especially with smaller brushes. You're not really, if you want to start doing a lot larger paintings, then you do have to invest in larger brushes. So if you're going to start painting large paintings, you start to have to get some larger brushes like this, like this, like this. You have to start going out and purchasing larger brushes if you want to paint larger paintings. So always remember that your brush size is going to match your size of painting. So we're doing smaller paintings. We can get away with using this and the Princeton Art and Brush Company brushes, like I was saying before. If you purchase those, you're all set. You can do this size and a little bit smaller. You can do anything. Like you can do the smaller sizes of paintings, like a 6 by 7 or 5 by 7. This might be like a 4 by 5, or is that probably like it's probably like a 4 by 5 here. This is probably like a 6 by 4. And this is probably, if that's 11 by 14 paper, this is probably like a 8 by 10 or 8 by 9. So this is just things you really kind of have to work out a little bit when you're starting out as an extreme beginner. You get yourself set up, you get some mats. This way you're painting in the correct sizes, so you can throw a mat on there and put it in a frame, sell it, give it for gifts, hang it up on the wall, whatever you want to do. You're the artist. And we'll get started here. Now this is the next step we're going to do is I'm going to take this mat, put it on here, and then we'll just set it down like this, and we're going to hold on to it tightly, pressing it down on the table so it doesn't move, like this. Press down on it, and then take your pencil line and just very super lightly go around the inside of this mat window, like that. Now you have your window that you have to at least paint that much, but you want to paint beyond that pencil line. So the next thing we do is we take tape, This is Pro Drafting Tape. You want to use Pro Drafting Tape. You can also pick up 3M painter's tape, purple. This purple tape works great. It won't tear up your paper. I promise you, if you buy the purple 3M tape, it will not tear up your paper. You can get this at the big box stores like Home Depot and Lowe's. I think those are all around the United States, and then over in Europe and other places around the world, you can probably order this online. 3M purple tape. It's painter's tape. You can also use this tape here. I use Pro Drafting Tape. This you can get online, and art stores sometimes have these. So basically the idea is you take your drafting tape or your painter's tape and you put it about a ½ an inch larger than the pencil line. So you want to go with your painter's tape and your drafting tape about a ½ an inch wider than your pencil line. That way you have plenty of extra paint going outside of the pencil line, so that if you have to move your mat around a little bit, you can do that. And you have a little bit of extra painting on your paper. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go a ½ an inch beyond that pencil line and put my tape down. Now that I have my tape down, like that, approximately the same size as the pencil line, is just a little bigger, then I can just take my kneaded eraser, like this. It's a gummed eraser, doesn't make any crumbs, and you just lift up the pencil line like so. Just a little bit. It's not going. You're not going to see it because we're going to paint right over it. So if it's a little bit, if you can see the pencil line a little bit, no big deal. We just lift up and you really do a light, very light pencil line when you're doing that tracing around the inside of the mat window. And there you have it. So now we are all set to paint. Okay. Now the next step is let's get our drawing in. So here you can see this reference photograph is a beautiful cafe with a building here and some umbrellas, and we're going to paint in a few figures. Clay tile roof, really, really nice painting. Only thing is, I don't necessarily want to paint this in 3 dimensions. I want to paint it in 2 dimensions, so I'm not going to paint any angles. I'm going to just take this side of the building over here, which is pretty much from here over, or I can take my mat and just sort of, so I'm gonna draw this over here. So I'm going to draw from this point over this way, and I'm going to delete or leave out this side of the painting. So this way it's more simple to draw. So if I just draw this side of the painting, it's simple, and I'll draw it in 2 dimensions, so there won't be any angles or anything like that. I'm just going to draw it in 2 dimensions and have no angles. I'm just going to leave it straight, plumb and level, all the lines. Okay, so we'll move that over here like that. All right, so we've done a lot so far. Wow, we've already been working 15 minutes. I've covered a lot of ground so far. We did a lot of details in the beginning, right, to go over the kind of fundamentals of when you're first getting started. I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this many times, all of these kind of like startup tips here, but I always want to revisit these ideas and these techniques and methods as we're going, because I know it's going to be a real huge help to you as you're painting, that you have these few, tips and things that you can kind of have when you're starting up and starting to paint. You'll be all set to really have a much easier time of getting your paintings done, being able to put mats and frames, mat and frame your paintings. You'll also be able to paint a lot easier if you're using some of the methods and tips and tricks I'm showing you here with taking some water off your brush when you're rinsing off your brush all the time. That's a real big help. And so let's take a quick break, and then we'll start the pencil sketch next. And I don't think it's going to be a really difficult, it's going to be a pretty simple drawing. You'll see. It's really basically an L-shaped building, an L in reverse, like that. And then there's 1, 2 squares, and then there's an arched doorway here, and then there's a few umbrellas. That's the basics of it. So you're not going to have a hard time drawing this and painting this, because you're going to see how kind of simple the composition is going to be when we're done. Okay, I'm going to take a break. I'll be right back, and we will get started with the drawing. All right, we're going to get started up again here. I did some preliminary sketching while I was away for a few minutes, and just to kind of keep things a little more simplified so we don't have to worry about doing too much drawing and planning and things like that. So what I did is I made some dimensions here. You can copy these down as we draw this picture, but you can see I have 5 inches here, 3.5 inches here, 4.5 inches here, 5.5 inches here, down to the bottom of the building, and then another 1 inch for the sidewalk and street area, 1 inch up high. And that's basically the dimensions going around the painting from up top here and over this way. So you can always hit pause and jot down these measurements, or you can jot them down while we're doing our drawing right now. So basically I just took this photograph and kind of just looked at it and made sure that the perspective was correct as far as the dimensions, for the most part, for the balcony and the arched doorway here for the arcade. And there's another window over here. In the arcade over here, it's actually a window opening. So, and we'll do some umbrellas as well. So let's do with a darker, I'm going to do a darker pencil line now. Maybe I'll sharpen up my pencil here. I'm not sure if my pencil sharpener is working right now. Okay, it works all right. Okay, so I'm going to start up here. Maybe I'll start down here actually at the bottom. So I'm going to do I'm just going to do a simple drawing. I'm not going to get too fancy. I'm going to do the archway here for the arcade, like that. And there's the sidewalk here, like that. And then I'm going to I can use the ruler, or I can just, since I did the ruler first, so basically what you'd want to do is do a preliminary light sketch using all these measurements to sort of frame out your drawing. And once you have it framed out, then you can just go over your pencil lines, your light pencil lines that you made with the ruler, and that should be fine. And then you just do your drawing over that, your pencil line here, like this. So I'm just going to go over and do my pencil lines here. This is the doorway for the balcony on the second floor up here. And then this is the soffit area of the roof. And there's some trim up here, so I'll put that across like so. And you might have to erase a few spots here and there. These are the clay tiles, so we'll do the clay tiles. They're basically just arches like this, all the way across, like that. Nothing too fancy. And then we'll go under here, and there's another trim under here like so. And then there's the arches for these clay tile roof tiles here. And we'll do some tiles up there. And we'll do these more loosely. We're not going to get too fancy. And then this is the other pier that comes down here, like so. And then there's another pier over here. Maybe we'll use the ruler on this. Might be better to use a ruler if you want. Sometimes it looks good just drawing it freehand, but we'll just do that. We'll come down with that pier there. And then this window opening here, like that. Okay, so we have pretty much the structure done for the building. And then we're going to want to do umbrellas. Umbrellas are about here. Bottom of the umbrellas are about here. So I'll do a light pencil line first, just to get a feel for where they're going to be. And they come all the way over to here, I think, like so. And there's 1, 2, 3, approximately 3. So I'm going to start one here like that. That's one. And then there's another one here. Like it's two. Basically, these are like triangles. And then there's another one behind this one, like this. And that's inside the arcade over there. So that's fine. And there's a little metal top to these. And then there's a small vent on the top, like so, for the umbrellas. And then we have the like that. We have some of the metal supports for the umbrella underneath the umbrellas. And then the umbrella poles, those are directly underneath this point here at the top of the umbrella, so those have to be straight on down like so. And this one back here, we're probably not going to see it, but I'll just put it in like that. And that looks pretty good. Low battery. I'm going to have to plug in my phone in a second. So now you can see we have the building drawn in. We're going to need to do the railings up here. So let's do some simple railings. They're a little fancier than, I'm going to do a simpler set of railings here than are in the picture. So I'm just going to do straight railings, just like this. And as long as they're about even, that's good enough. Okay, now I think we're pretty good. We're going to do, all right, we're going to do some tables underneath the umbrellas, like this, just approximates like that. And we'll do a few chairs. I'll do a chair on both sides here. And again, they don't have to be perfect, just kind of rough in some chairs. Basically, they're rectangles with some sticks underneath them to hold them up. They don't have to be perfect, just get them in there quickly. We're going to paint all this in later, and you're not going to be worried about the details, trust me. We're going to have figures sitting in these chairs, so you're not even really going to see the chairs, but you just want to kind of have them in there to have something to work with. So, and we'll have a figure over here maybe standing. So we'll do a few figures standing and a few figures in a chair, in the chairs, having some lunch or some coffee in these beautiful cafes. Let's continue on, but let's take a break. We have to take breaks as we're working through this type of a painting, and it's an extreme beginner's painting, so you're really going to be having a great time with this, taking your time. If it takes you a couple days to work through this, that's fine too. It's all up to you. Maybe some of you are going to really go through it in a couple hours or whatever. That's fine. Just, work at your own pace. You're the artist. You figure out whatever your pace is, and then you just work with it. And if whatever it takes, you just do it. You just make sure you get your building pretty much like we did here. And again, you can simplify it even more than I have it. But I think you can see the basic layout of this drawing, and I have the measurements right here around the drawing with the arrows and the lines so that you know where one stops and one begins again. So I hope that's clear. You can get this in, get it in with a nice pencil drawing, and then you'll be all ready to paint. Okay, so we're going to paint next, and then we'll kind of see how it shapes up and comes together as we're doing our painting for this. And we'll sketch in the figures first too, and then we'll move on to the painting. Okay, we'll be right back. And hey, don't forget, if you haven't subscribed yet and you're really happy with this channel, you're happy with our work here, you can just always subscribe on the right hand side below. And this way you won't lose track of me. You'll keep coming back week after week here, month after month, and year after year. You'll just keep coming back. You'll get better at watercolors without a doubt, because we're covering all the basic fundamentals and methods and techniques in watercolor all the time. So even if you're skipping a week here and there, you'll always be getting the same fundamentals every week because I cover those all every week in my paintings. I won't leave out the basics that you need to learn, and that's my goal, covering the basics week after week so that no matter when you tune in to my channel, you'll be getting the basics and the fundamentals of watercolor, and after a while it'll become a second nature for you to just do all the steps that you need to do to create beautiful watercolors. So I'll be right back. All right, let's get started now. Back here, let's get a few standing figures first. So I'm just going to do a couple of standing figures here. Okay, just, some basic head and shoulders. So I'll do a figure standing over here. That might be good. And then we'll do a seated figure here. Nothing too fancy here. Table. Might have to make this a little bit higher up. So that'll be like so. So the head here at the table, and then we'll have some legs over here. And don't worry about the figures in the chairs. Just kind of rough them in. So you have some upper body, legs here underneath the table. Just a little indication. Like that. Okay, a couple seated figures here. And they're having some coffee and chatting. Okay, and then maybe we have another figure here. And maybe this figure is just having some lunch or some coffee. Again, the same thing, just some basic legs and upper body and a head. And I think that should be fine. So we have four figures, one standing and then two in the seats here in the cafe tables here. And then one more figure over here seated. And I think that's enough. So we have all the ingredients now sketched in. Let's start the painting. We're going to start out with a larger brush here. I want to do this alla prima. So we talk about on my channel here, you'll always hear me. Usually I'm going to take either two approaches, either alla prima or glazing technique. So here we're going to use the alla prima method, which means we're going in, painting everything at one time, and we're not really going to cover the whole paper with a wash and let it dry and then come back and do it, that type of a thing. That's the glazing technique, and that's a great technique, and we use it a lot here. But this one's going to be alla prima, which means we're just going to go in and get in some darks first, dark washes, and then we'll work from there and start to finish up the rest of the painting from that point. So the first thing I'll do is mix up some darks for these arcades and this balcony and this window over here. So darks are going to be black up here with some brown, black, brown, some red and orange. I want to get red, orange, black, and brown, and then some blue even too. Some blue in there and purple. And that might be good. And notice there's not too much water there. There's not too much water. And I'm going to use this flat brush, and I'm just going to start to block in these darks. You can see how dark that is. So that's what we want to do. We want to get in our darks here. And I'm going to paint right over the railings like so. And then what I do is I rinse my brush, and then I have a piece of paper towel. I dry off a little bit of the water on the paper towel so I don't have too much water in there. And then I just take the rest of the wash and I finish up with the rest of the wash like that, so that I have my balcony there completed. Good enough. Then we're going to take that same wash, same deal, a little bit of orange, a little bit of red. Let's do this here. It needs to be darker, so I'm going to make some darker blue and some more black and some more red. Not too much water. And then let's paint over the top of that umbrella like that. And there's some greenery and things over here, so now at this point I'm going to try to leave some spaces for some of that green shrubs and plantings over here behind. Okay, so we'll go back there and do some of the green washes once that dries. So you can kind of see how I kind of painted around what I'm pretending is the bushes and the trees behind these figures here. Because you can see there's some greens over here, some bushes and trees, so I want to kind of put that back here. And that should be fine. This is building, so this is going to be white. And then here, let's start our archway here for the arcade. And then here, I'm just going to carefully, with my brush, follow that pencil line, like so. And then I'm going to paint carefully on top of the umbrellas. I don't want to cover the umbrellas, of course. So this is where you take your time. Make sure you're going to go right around the top of the arch using your square brush here. And then you want to make sure you don't paint on top of that. You know, you paint along the top of the umbrellas, but you don't paint over that umbrella. That's kind of just something to keep in mind, to try to really focus on that, not going over the top of the umbrella where you paint over that umbrella shape. You want to keep that shape really nice, that triangular shape of the umbrellas, like that. Perfect, looks good. You're doing a great job, I'm sure, out there. Let's keep going. And then we're going to go in here and do the arcade. It's kind of dark back there, lots of shadows. And I added a little more water, so I added a little more of a damp brush here. A little bit of coolness here, so I'm going to add some blue. And if you want, you mix up a little bit of blue and you add some blue to all these areas. Maybe just a little bit of blue, just to kind of, you know, kind of make it interesting. Warm and cool colors all the time. And then I'm going to paint around my figures here. I'm going to paint around that pole for the both of the umbrellas. So I'm trying to make sure I don't go over those. This over here is the chair. We don't have to worry about that chair. And you can kind of see how I'm just carefully painting with the square brush, so I can kind of keep all my lines pretty straight. So I made sure I left the umbrella poles, carefully left those in. And then we'll paint in the figure. So we're already really moving along nicely. See how we've really kind of captured some really beautiful darks in this with doing the alla prima method. So when you think of the alla prima method, you're kind of thinking of paintings where you have some really good darks in your painting that you can start with. And then from there you work out from that point and kind of do the rest of your painting. But these darks are really powerful. They look great. Kind of really just makes a beautiful composition right away without even doing much but putting in these darks in it already looks really good, doesn't it? All right, so we're going to have to do some more painting. Let's mix up some orange for the umbrellas. So I'm using a light and dark orange, or like a, this is kind of like a warmer orange with more red in it, and this is an orange with more yellow in it over here. So then we mix these two together and we get kind of an interesting, and let's just go over the whole umbrellas like so. Just like that. And just paint right over them like so. Like that. Then you can take some of that orange and put it into the under side of this, which is going to give us some of that orange color, light, orange light. So I just put a little bit of that orange like that. You don't have to get too fancy with that orange. You could leave the paper white there. I just did a little bit of the orange kind of tone on the paper, but you don't really have to do that. I wouldn't say you have to get too fancy. And I just added a little more shadow in there. And let's go right in to more orange up top, clay tile roof. This here, you just go right in and paint the whole enchilada. Like that. And then up top, same thing. Okay, we'll put the shadows in later for the umbrellas and the clay tile roof, but I think that looks pretty good. Then let's get in our sky wash. Okay, so we have sky wash up here, maybe a little bit of greens too. So there's some green trees up here. So I'm going to add some of that green. And there's a little bit of purple shadow up here along the top here. A couple of splashes with the green. So we have some trees over here. A little bit of purple. Okay, that's just going to give us some more interesting greens up here, because we're going to put greens over here. Like this. So I splash on some greens there. Now we're going to keep working at this. We want to try to get a lot done here while we're at it. Let's do some purple. And orange. Let's do our shadows under here. And the shadows go here and then they step up like that. So I'm using purple and orange for shadows. And this is here. Okay, so we put our shadows in there. And then we can do more shadowing here. Purple, I'm using a smaller brush now. Again, the Princeton Art and Brush Company. You get a set of like five or six brushes in one pack. And then you have it. So I'm just going to do I'm going to wait till this dries. Let's take a break. Let's let this dry. You can use a blow dryer at this point to dry up some of your washes. I'm going to probably just let it, I'm going to use a blow dryer maybe. What's good about breaks is sometimes, things can get sloppy if we keep working too much. So I want to make sure I don't lose control of my technique here and what I'm doing. You can kind of see we got a lot done now. We got the darks in. We got the orange umbrellas and the orange clay tile roof. Some sky wash with trees. Some more trees over here. And some shadows. So now we're really good. If we can let this dry, maybe for a couple hours, if you're not going to use a blow dryer. If you want to use a blow dryer, you can blow dry this right now. And in 10 minutes, you can go back in and keep working. So I'm going to blow dry this and come back in about 10 minutes. And keep working, okay? And we'll finish right up because all we have left are the figures and maybe some shadowing underneath the figures and the tables. And the umbrellas might have a little bit of a shadowing effect on the ground. I think it does. I can see here there's shadows underneath these umbrellas on the sidewalk here. So the cafe sidewalk has some shadows. So this is just a beautiful cafe scene, and it really didn't take us too long. The drawing takes the most time to kind of get everything the way you want it for the drawing. But once that's done, the rest kind of goes pretty quick. So let's come back in just a few minutes after this dries, and then we'll pick up again. All right, let's keep rolling in here, and I noticed right away, I think we're going to need some more purple and maybe some blue, maybe some orange and purple and blue. I think this needs to be darker, the shadows up here. Like that. So I'm just going to go over these shadows again with my square brush, my flat brush, like that. And if you go over a spot, no problem, lift it up. Okay, those shadows look a little better. They're going to dry lighter. Right now, when we put them on the paper, just at this moment, these are a little darker now, but you'll see that they will lighten up a little bit, and then it's going to look better. And so let's keep continuing on. Let's use our small round brush here, And we'll use, again, the same thing, purple, maybe some burnt umber, purple, blue. And let's get in the bottoms of our clay tiles here at the edge of the roof. So at the edge of the roof, you'll see the undersides of the clay tile. So that's all we're going to do here is make that arch shape like so. Just like this. We're making all these arches. You take your time, try to get those arches in looking good, like so. They don't have to be perfect. You try to get them in best you can. Sometimes if you make them a little bit irregular, they look better. Okay, that looks pretty good. Then we take a little more of that paint, dry off a little bit of the paint off the brush, and then we're going to get just a few of the, we're going to do a few of these. Just like that. And we'll dry off a little more on the brush, and then we'll do some of these. We'll do some of these vertical lines for the clay tile roofs like that. Just for some fun, just to have some interesting lines on there. And then we're actually really in good shape. Let's do some black here, mixed in with that brown that we had earlier. Dry off some of the brush. Let's do some of the railings. And look at that. We're already done with the railings because there's only a few that you can kind of see along this, like that. Later on, we're going to use a little bit of titanium white to put a couple highlights on the railings in the middle where it's dark, where the shadows are. But we'll do that last. That'll be the very last thing we do, is a little bit of the white highlights on that railing over here. But for the most part, that's all we needed, is those few little bits of railing here. We can even put them across this way. Let's do that. Take the black and just do some railings like so. And go right across too, like that. Quick and easy. Don't fuss around with it. Have fun. Very artistic looking painting. Not too much painstaking brush strokes, things like that. Try to just get it in there. Just have fun. Put some really fun brush strokes all around the painting. And you'll find that it'll really look good that way. So now what we'll do next is we're going to do these tables and these figures here. So I'm going to... maybe I'll take some orange. I'm going to do some orange there for this person's coat. And then maybe I'll do some red here for the for over here for his arm, over there like that. And then maybe some blue. We'll do some blue for the pants here, and a little bit darker there on the pants, and then down here it's a little lighter. Maybe there's some sunlight there. A little bit of shadow, like that. And then some red for the face here. And that gentleman's wearing a hat. We'll put some white paint on there to fix up that hat. Let's go over here, orange and red. We'll do some face here. Some flesh colors for the faces here. We can use some black over here. If it gets away from you, blot it up, start again, do the hair later. So we're not going to do the hair now, we're going to do some dark hair later. Let's do some more, let's do a shirt here, a blouse here. Maybe this is a dress. And then we'll do some legs here. And we'll maybe do some slacks over here on this gentleman here. And we're going to have shadows under that table. Same thing here, a shadow under the table. Okay, so you can kind of see everything is coming along pretty good. And then maybe over here we're going to have another and we'll have some more. And we're just having some fun getting in some figures and make it fun. Go fast. Don't really painstake over anything. Just kind of keep to your game plan. Just keep moving quickly at it. Don't get too hung up on one area. And if you make a mistake, you can blot it up with some tissue and then go back later once it dries. But I think we're looking pretty good here. We have some we're going to do some shadowing, purple and blue, like that. So we'll put some purple there with some brown, like this, a little bit of orange, and then we're just going to have some of the that's the umbrella shadow. That looks good. And then we'll do some chairs with the black and brown. So we use black and brown, dry off a little bit of the paint on the brush so you can do some more, not too much. So you kind of want to have some paint on the brush, but not too much. And then we'll just do the legs of the chairs, like so. Like this. This chair over here. That's all. Some darker darks under here for the table, like that. I'm going to do a little bit of a Okay, that's pretty good. Let's do some lines in the sidewalk here. So this one here, dry off a little bit of the paint on a paper towel or a tissue. And we'll just get in some lines for some sidewalks. So they start here, this one starts straight, and then this one goes this way, and then this one goes that way, like that. That gives us a feel of the sidewalks here. And I think we're looking pretty good. The only thing left I think we have to do is, let's get some yellow, some highlight. Let's take a break though. Let's take a break now before we do some highlighting. I want to just make sure I take a break. I sometimes will skip breaks and then I have problems, you know, with kind of my technique starts to falter a little bit. So if I take a break now, I'm going to be much better off. So do the same thing. Take as many breaks as you need. Some people, you may not need a break. You might be able to keep working for like an hour or two without a break, but I usually normally take a break every like 20 minutes or so, just to, stretch my legs or actually sit down for a few minutes and then get back started again. So let me do that. Let me take a break. I'll come right back and we'll finish up here. We're having a great time. And I always say, please, if you haven't, subscribe on the right-hand side below. And if you're here for the first time, welcome. Thank you so much for coming by. And again, if you're subscribing, you won't lose track of me. You'll be able to come along and we're going to paint together, doing these wonderful paintings. And we're going to always learn something new about watercolor. And each week as we work, new things about techniques, new little tidbits of information. I try to bring as many, interesting tidbits of techniques and methods that I can so that you can kind of pick up on some of them and use them in your own artwork and in your own paintings. I hope you'll always be getting better and enjoying your journey in watercolor, so that I figure if you're always learning and your paintings are getting better, you're going to stick with it and have a really fun time with it, and it'll be something you'll have a lot of joy and fun with over the years. So let's get started again in just a second. I just want to take a quick break. We'll do some highlights with some white paint, titanium white. We're going to use titanium white. We'll put a little bit of yellow and orange in the paint just so it's got a little bit of a warm white kind of feel to it, and we'll put some highlights on the heads of the figures and a couple highlights on the railings here, and I think we'll have everything all wrapped up. So again, thanks for coming by and painting with us, and we're going to just finish up our painting with a few last minute details with our titanium white for some highlights. Okay, and we'll be right back. All right, we're finishing up. Let's get our titanium white. And we're going to put a little bit of orange. I'm going to empty my water, make sure I have clean, fresh water. So this way when I rinse my brush and I'm working with my white paint in my tube here, it's nice and fresh and clean, the water that I'm rinsing my brush off with. Because if I have murky water that's got all kinds of muddy looking color in that water, it might affect it. So I'm going to take the paint here, and it looks like it's got a little bit of orange from my last painting. So I'll just put a little more in there. And that should be fine. So I'll take that, I'll get my brush with some of the white paint on there. You can see the white paint. And I'm going to do this person's hat here. This gentleman has a hat on there, so I'm going to do that. And then there's another light there on the top of this person's head and there too, and on their shoulder. And this person too, I'm going to put the highlight there. They might have a newspaper. I'll put a newspaper there. Or that might be this might be a menu. So we have that. And then I'll rinse off the brush. I'll get a new tissue here. A new tissue. This way I can dry off my brush, rinse off my brush, dry off the brush a little bit. I'll go in and get some black here. I want to get some hair here. That looks good. Some hair. And then this one here too, maybe some hair here. Okay, so we're just putting in some details now. I'm using some brown and some black to just make some hair. That looks good enough. The gentleman with the hat looks fine. Yeah, I'm thinking this looks pretty good. Maybe some more white here for the shoes. Maybe there's some tennis shoes here. Some running shoes or tennis shoes. Kind of fixes up the bottom here by the pants, so you have some shoes, and the pants and the shoes look good. And shadowing looks good underneath the umbrellas. I think we could use maybe a little bit more shadow on the sides of these piers over here. So our highlights. Let's finish our highlights here. I wanted to do some highlights on these railings. So what I'll do is I'll just do a couple little touches of light there. Just like that. And then a couple here and there. Just a little bit of that titanium white in a couple spots. Just makes us aware that there is railings there, and there's some light bouncing off them a little bit. And then we have a little bit of, I'm going to use this small square brush here. This one here, we're going to use this square brush again, and what I'll do is I'm going to try to use this for a little bit of shadowing along here. Like that. And it should go up here too as well. Like that. So this way you have a shadow on this pier over here, because this sort of juts out. You can kind of see in the photograph that pier juts out this way a little bit. So it protrudes from the wall, the main wall of this interior section here. So if we put a little shadow line on there, that looks pretty good. And you can leave the pencil lines on the building if you want, or you can maybe erase them a little bit, lighten them up a little bit if you want, and you can even add some highlights. You can do a little bit of wash, maybe some orange and yellow and red over here, a little bit of that wash, and you can add a couple little bits of wash over here, maybe on this side. Just so that a little bit of that orange. There and over here too. It'll make those piers here look a little more, it accentuates them a little more. And we could even add a little bit of orange to the sidewalk. And then we'll peel off the tape, and I think we had a fun time doing this painting. It did take some time to get the drawing in. So if you're patient and you can do that drawing in the beginning, then everything else should go smooth. And if you just wanted to do the drawing freehand, you can do that as well too. Just as long as you have a general idea of the shapes and the kind of the space divisions of everything on the building. But it doesn't have to be as difficult as I did it. I think I went the real detailed route of drawing this drawing first, doing all the measurements and using the ruler and everything, but you could draw this more freehand, freestyle, let's say, a little more, and get a really beautiful result the same way by just using, the same techniques with the painting. So if you're painting with the same techniques we used in the methods here with the alla prima method, and you have maybe more of a primitive, artistic looking building and not maybe as much straight lines, maybe you draw it freehand. I'm just giving you ideas. I hope does that make sense? I want you to have freedom to create your paintings the way you want to. So they don't necessarily have to be exactly the way I do them. You can come up with some of your own ideas. Maybe you want to go a little less detail on these paintings. Maybe make them more minimalistic, less details. You could do that too as well. So have fun with it though, at the least. Have fun with the colors, the beautiful oranges and blues and greens we used, and the purples for the shadows, and the figures. We had fun doing those, right, with the highlights and on the tops of the figures, on the shoulders and the heads. And so we had a lot of fun with this, using a lot of different techniques and methods that we use in watercolor all the time, especially with the alla prima method as we're using here. And can't wait to get back to working again on the next video. So we'll see you soon, and happy painting, everyone, and we'll talk to you in just a little while. Bye-bye.